big sound in a small town, far away from the big city lights, making music every night. Good music with all our friends. Tell everybody, tell your mama and them, we're going out and we're getting down. A big sound in a small town. A big sound in a small town. A big sound in a small town. A big sound in a small town.
My guest today on Big Sound Small Town is a North Carolina treasure. His name is David Holt, and I'm sure it's a name you all recognize because he's been on TV. You've seen him play live. You've heard him tell stories, I'm sure, somewhere, and I'm just tickled to death to have him here. How are you today, David?
I'm doing pretty good. It's a gorgeous day, and I live up in the mountains outside of Asheville, basically in the woods. So it's just like, hey, this is heaven right here.
No, I know
on
what.
this particular day.
Oh, that's great. That is really good. So there's nothing I can say when we start this to anybody that's listening that knows who you are. But I don't think people really know how this all came about. I mean, to me, you're the consummate person with an idea who brings it to fruition.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that a lot. You know, when you do this, when you're making a living playing traditional music, you don't expect people to notice what you're doing, really. I mean, you can't go in expecting that. And so I appreciate that kind of observation you've made. Thank you.
Well, you know, it's you've reinvented it again in North Carolina. Bluegrass has been a mainstay, but old time, I think that you actually put it back in circulation in North Carolina.
I think I did a lot to encourage people to do it, and maybe the most important thing I've done is doing the Legacy CD with Doc about his life, and the television shows I've done, Folkways on public television, and Fire on the Mountain on the Nashville Network, and Celebration Express, and I've had something on TV since 1980, actually, and the current one, David Holt's State of Music.
Yeah.
So I think that's had a big influence.
Well, let's just talk about that a minute. Did these ideas, I mean, how did you come up with this idea to do this, I found this music, I'm going to revive it a little bit, but I mean, you've taken an idea and ran with it, and that part to me is equally as exciting as the whole work in itself.
It's true. I got when I first. Well, let me take a step back. I was going to college in San Francisco, and I dropped out of school to teach at an elementary school to see if I wanted to be a teacher.
Right.
And the very first night I was there, just out of the blue, I was mugged by 3 guys and pretty much beat up and left for dead.
Yeah.
That just changed my whole view of music. I'd been a drummer before that, and a friend of mine had a whole collection of 78s, old cowboy singers, and I realized, man, that's what I feel like. I feel like lonesome on the prairie. And so I started learning cowboy music, and I went to see the very first cowboy singer ever to record. His name was Carl Sprague, and the folks at UCLA said, he's still alive. And I said, well, that's kind of close to where my parents live in Bryan, Texas. And so I went to meet him, and he showed me how to play the guitar, or the cowboy lick on the guitar.
Oh, yeah.
He definitely showed me from the beginning of how to play the harmonica. And I just thought, this is incredible. If you can go see somebody that's your mentor, your hero, gosh, what more can you ask? If they're not too famous, you can do that. And that started me off. So
then did you make like pilgrimages to places to see people that that you
Well,
found?
I wasn't a folklorist, so I didn't really know exactly how to do it.
Right.
But the people at UCLA said, there's tons of this kind of music back in the Southern Mountains is still going. You'll find guys like Carl Spragg all over the place. And so in 1969, while everybody was going to Woodstock, I was going to Woodstick. And, a friend of mine and I came back to the mountains and spent 3 months traveling all the way from Georgia, all the way up to Appalachia.
So you were actually doing an AP Carter type of thing, really?
Yeah, that got me excited because I realized we're talking about 1969,
Yeah.
73 when I first moved here. But in those other years, I came back and was doing field collecting and just realized there are so many incredible musicians and storytellers and everything else back here. I just had to do it because at the time there really weren't. There was Mike Seeger,
Yeah.
and my friend John McCutcheon was
Mm-hmm.
sort of out there with me, and it just seemed like, man, you just need to do this. I didn't know what the end result would be at all. Making a living, I didn't have any thought of that. I just wanted to learn how to play the clawhammer banjo and the other instruments that I came across. So that I never lost the fire for that.
Did you? I guess you learned those instruments actually in this time of visiting these people.
I did, and I really worked. I really worked on the clawhammer banjo. That's what I love the most.
Right.
And I realized if you really give it the time and really concentrate on what you're doing, you can learn it pretty fast.
Yeah, this is true. And you were learning at a fairly young age in life.
I was 22.
Yeah. That's a good age. I mean, and along the way, and people who've seen your live shows know this, but at some point you taught yourself how to play a paper bag.
Well, I met an old guy in Sodom, North Carolina, the same guy that showed me how to play the mouth bow, but he used a paper bag for rhythm.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really great. I was fascinated by the unusual creative things that mountain people did to make music and entertain themselves before there was, even radio.
And I can see that a lot of your drumming background played into that too, but with the different percussion type of things that you found along the way.
That's exactly right. Yeah, I love that kind of stuff. I love any rhythmic thing. I like the washboard that I learned from the oldest woman in the world, who was 121 at the time.
Wow.
And that was an instrument. She said that was the only instrument they had in their community of Bamberg, South Carolina. And so I said, I got to learn that. You can look at that. I think there's several shots of that on the internet.
Okay, yeah, that is really cool. I mean, that's another thing too. You did have that, and I guess photography has probably been a big part of your journey too.
It has been. Yeah, I was so lucky that I had the foresight to take a picture of these people, and I wish I had been even more organized. But I do have quite a collection of portraits of folks like, Ray Hicks and
Right.
Doc Watson, and you name them. I probably got something of them.
I mean, I think that's really big. Not only did you record a lot of these people, but you visually captured the people too, which that's priceless because those at the time those people probably hadn't even been photographed that many times.
No, that's exactly right. A lot of times you'll see my photographs as the one that they use if they're using making a book or something like
Right.
that, because people didn't take pictures of them. But if I know there's photographers listening right now and saying, I'd like to see some of those pictures. If you look at davidholt.com and go to the mentor section, you can see some of the photographs and a little write-up about the people.
Sure, and I urge you to do that. I have done that, and it's pretty special. I urge all the listeners to go do that, particularly if you like photographs. I mean, it's a historical collection, really.
Yeah, I feel like it is too. And when it's not, I have a show that goes around. It's got about 36 pictures in it, but I hang them in my bedroom the rest of the time because I just like to look at those people, and they're such powerful faces and
Yeah.
powerful people
Sure. I mean,
behind
it's a
those
cross
faces.
section of actually the rural South. Really.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
I mean,
black and white.
I mean that is the recording history. I mean, I don't know that you probably even set out to be a music historian, but I think that kind of came along with it, grew with it.
You kind of came along with it, yeah, because it was so fascinating. People's stories were pretty incredible. And at that time, we're talking about the late '60s, early '70s. All these old timers were alive that were born in the late 1900s.
Right.
Um, and born in the 1880s and stuff like that. And I realized I had grandparents about that era,
Oh yeah.
and that this whole generation was going to be gone,
Right.
and is gone now.
Yeah, it is
But
gone.
it was an amazing thing if you got to see it. Those people were powerful.
When you were living this part of it before it actually became what you've become, I mean, did you realize how special it was that you were on what you were on to?
No, that's not at all. I was just doing it, following one foot in front of the other, and just enjoying the heck out of it, because the musical community, as you know, is a great group of people.
Oh, it's great, good group of people.
And yeah, so that was fun, and getting to know the old timers. They really love to be, recognized.
Sure.
What I was saying at the very beginning, people, you want to be acknowledged for what you've done, and they appreciated that. I didn't ever have anyone. Well, no, I'll take that back. I won't say his name, but I had one musician who would put his handkerchief over his left hand so I couldn't see what his left hand was doing. Like that made a difference.
Yeah,
But,
I mean that's funny. I was wondering how welcoming these people were, and
I was pretty. I feel welcome, because banjo was the key to that.
the key to the transition between them.
Yeah, because they had grown up hearing the clawhammer banjo.
Right.
Many of them didn't play it. It was their fathers and grandfathers
Right.
that played it. So we're talking like right after the Civil War to now.
Right.
And so I guess that was the main thing, is that
The
they were
welcoming
just being
mat.
recognized.
Yeah. I mean that's common denominator, I guess, which is, I guess you didn't plan that either. I guess that just happened also, right? I mean, you didn't know would be you didn't know that would be such a way to interact, I guess. It was just what you did at the time, I guess.
And the television, I think, made a lot of difference too, because I had a neighbor lived out in Fairview, North Carolina. It was very rural, and I had a neighbor with where the old man played pretty funky guitar, but he loved it, man. He loved to play it. I'd go play with him, and he had a grandson who just didn't give a hoot about the music. And I said, Jim, you need to take this up from your grandfather. He's so passionate about it. He didn't care. And then when I started, this was in the days of the big satellites that were as big as a car.
Yeah.
And he started seeing me on the national network and seeing the show and the different people on Fire on the Mountain, everybody from Bill Monroe to
Right.
Ricky Skaggs, everybody. And because it was on television, he got interested. He started playing, and that made me think, man, it's important to keep this at least somewhere in television on the air, because it's not influencing everybody. It doesn't need to influence everybody. But
Right.
if there's a little group of people that understand it and want to play it, that's what it needs to stay alive.
Well, it's how did you decide to take this to TV? I mean, that's kind of amazing too.
Let me think about that.
I mean, at some point you were collecting this stuff, and did you just come up with the idea, I need to do something with this, and maybe TV is what it?
I was hoping for it. Yeah, I was hoping for something like that, but I didn't really know how to do it. And then PBS, North Carolina PBS, not national PBS,
Right.
asked me to do this show, Folkways. That was 1980. And the producers came to see me. I was teaching at Warren Wilson College. I was directing the Appalachian music program. And they came to my office, and a letter. They were trying to figure out if I was well known enough, or just
Right.
was a proper personality for the TV show. And a letter came that day, oddly enough, and on my desk was a letter. It said, "Banjo player, North Carolina."
That's funny.
And whatever postman sent it to me, and they were so impressed with that.
That is pretty cool. Were you living like in Fairview or somewhere like that at the time?
Yeah, I've always pretty much lived in Fairview, yeah,
And
outside of Asheville.
So I guess the postman figured out that on his route you were the banjo player.
I guess so, but it had to go further back than that because the guy was writing me from Connecticut or somewhere.
That's hilarious. So
Yeah, that was funny.
Did you have to sell them when they came to you, or was it?
No, I don't know. It just sort of began to happen, and the first one, it was a very successful show for North Carolina public. So
It was. I mean, it was. Yeah, I agree.
They played it for 30 years. They still play it occasionally, I think.
Yeah, I see it every once in a while.
Yeah, I got these wearing clothes from the 1970s.
yeah, I see those. But then, I may have read this, or I may have figured this on my own. But the hats you wear are probably not from the 70s, but probably, I don't know, 40s, 30s.
That's right. They're 40s fedoras.
Yeah.
Unless they're straw hats. And I didn't always wear a hat. If you look at my first record called It Just Suits Me, I've got hair and I don't have a hat. But I was on Hee Haw, started to be asked to be on Hee Haw. And the first time I was on there, I was in the makeup chair. If you remember that show, people looked like they'd just come from the pallbearer,
Mm-hmm.
the funeral home. They had so much makeup on. Anyway, they were putting on the makeup, and she took out a eyebrow pencil and started drawing in hair, like my hairline. It was receding. I said, "What are you doing?" She said, "Well, you either have to get a toupee, or I do this, or you wear a hat." I said, "I got a hat in the car. Let me go get it." And so I wore that hat, and people recognized me much faster with the hat. I thought, well, that's kind of a nice little logo.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what it became.
So the hat started.
And now I don't have any hair, so.
So the hat started on Hee Haw.
Hat started on Hee Haw, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, Hee Haw is you between Hee Haw and Old Brother. I think you've been in some of the most iconic music shows ever. I mean,
I so loved being on Hee Haw because this is when Acup was alive and Minnie Pearl, and you would tape for a whole week. They'd fly everybody in to Nashville and tape the week. And they would do it by just having everybody stand around. And Sam Lovello, the producer, would say, "Okay, Grandpa, get Holt and Hartford and somebody else, and let's do the 4 banjo segments." And we'd just figure out what we were going to do right then and do it. And then the rest of the time, we stood around and I listened to those guys tell stories.
I'm sure that was fabulous.
That was pretty exciting.
Yeah, I'm sure that was probably as much fun as the actual show itself. I mean,
definitely.
That's I take it most of the people that you've been involved with have been pretty nice people along the way.
Really nice, yeah. It's a great group of folks.
You know, people have asked me about, I don't know, I've interviewed tons of people, and they say, "Oh, tell me about the bad ones. I want to hear about the bad ones." Well, for the most part, most of the musicians I've dealt with have been good people.
That's what I feel like too. I can't think of any bad ones except for people who maybe thought that you're going to make a fortune off recording their song or something, but that's not bad. That's understandable why people might think that. But in terms of bad people,
Yeah.
It doesn't attract bad people.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right.
You don't do it for fame, and you don't do it for fortune, so that cuts out a lot of the riffraff right there.
True. And if you do, you'll be out of that. You'll be out of the business pretty quickly.
Yeah, right.
So so I mean, it just. Were you also at the time that you were working this stuff? Were you working as a entertainer?
Performer.
Performer.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started the Appalachian Music Program at Warren Wilson College, and I did that for 6 years. And I said, you know what? I don't really like committee meetings, and I really want to just perform full time. And I had been performing up until that time. This was 1981, and I got on Hee Haw in '80, and that Folkways show started in 1980. And I said, I'm just going to take a chance and try to make a living doing this.
Sure.
And I told my wife, I said, I'm going to just dig in and see what I can do and see if I can make a living. And I, did well.
Yeah, you did. I mean, you have. It's is that program still in existence at Warren Wilson?
Yeah.
I mean,
It still is.
You taught dance. I mean, it incorporated dance along with music too, didn't it? The traditional.
It did.
Dance.
It had pretty much the full gamut. It's mostly it's concentrating on the old time music.
Right.
A lot of cool ballad singers and fiddlers, and so yeah, it's still going. Then there's another great one at ETSU.
Yeah.
Old time and bluegrass, and so there's some of these really great musicians are coming out of the program.
Oh.
I mean, they can't really go find the old timers,
Right.
I'm 75, so I'm an old timer at this point.
Yeah, exactly, and so am I. I'm 70, so we're the old timers.
That's right. Doesn't feel like it, but hey, here you are.
Right. I mean, it just happens somehow. But I mean, that's something that you would have to be immensely proud of, that it still goes, and something that you started has influenced so many people just through the education alone.
I think so, and that and playing for the schools. I never stopped doing that when I was out performing all the time.
You kept going to the schools.
Yeah, taking time to go to the schools and play, because I had so many people, so many young men and women come up and say, you came to my school. They're like 50 now.
Oh yeah.
To me, yeah, you came to my school and you played, and I decided I wanted to be a musician right then and there. There's several of those guys in the bands around Western North Carolina. And
I am fully convinced that seeing live music, seeing a live performer when you're a child is paramount to a lot of people becoming musicians.
I do too. I agree with you.
Out of the Earl Scruggs Center, that is something that, there's a room that children can come in there anytime and just pick up any musical instrument. They have just about everything you can think of, from bones to upright basin.
I know, they've done a great job.
And that's pretty good. And then I know these guys, the Hen House Prowlers, and they go around the schools, or they have schools come actually to where they're at.
Yeah.
And they let them touch and feel play their instruments. And I do believe that you can hear it and see them on TV, but there's nothing like seeing a live performer right there.
Yeah, and having that energy all around you, everybody's excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you get kids between kindergarten and say, actually any age, but the 10-year-old, 11-year-old,
sure,
12, 13, that's where music is coming into their lives.
It is.
And they're saying, oh, that's cool. That's really cool what that guy did. Wow. I love that.
I mean, that's a great mission work right there, if there ever was any. I mean, that's, and I don't know, you did State Department stuff abroad too, didn't you?
Yeah, I went to all over Africa, and I went many times to South America. This is at a time when the government had Arts America, and they would send everybody from the Joffrey Ballet to the David Holt Trio we always went to third world countries and loved it. And the same thing there, we had a huge influence in Colombia, because we were there we did about 5 tours to Colombia, South America. And at each concert I would teach the audience how to do ham bone.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And quite a few years later, I met a folklorist. He said, I was down in Colombia and everybody was doing ham bone. I said, well, I think they probably learned it from me.
That's great. I mean,
yeah, that was really shocking, but fun.
Yeah, that really is. And then at some point, beside performing, oh wait, while we're at the performance level, let's talk about the suit. The suit that you wore with the lightning bolts.
Thunderwear.
Yeah, yep.
So this was an idea I had about the ham bone, that if you could make a suit with drum triggers sewn all in it in the same places that you would slap with ham bone,
Ham
like your
bone,
knee,
yeah.
shoulders, your hands, your mouth, everything like that. You could electrify that. It would be quite a sound, because you could make the sound of a drum set or
It could.
Latin drum set or anything. And so I used to do that in the shows, but I stopped doing it because people got so excited about that. That's all they wanted to hear. And I said, I spent 50 years learning to play the banjo. I'm not going to let this thing take over.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand that. That's kind of the forerunner of Future Man's.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, do you still have that suit? I'm just curious.
Yes, I do. I take it out every once in a while and play it, because it's great fun.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is. It's and I do understand that where you wouldn't want that because it is an overriding type of thing that people love, and you don't want them really to come see you because you are in that suit.
That's right. I did it for years, but I sort of put it away because it's kind of a hassle to set up too. So there it is.
Yeah. Well, I've always wondered about that. I mean, did you just find somebody to sew triggers into it, or?
Yeah, at first I had to find triggers that would work like that, where you slap them. And then I found a seamstress who designed the whole suit and sewed the things in there. And I had to try it out to see how many places you could hit. You could get about 16 triggers going.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it turned out to be a fairly expensive suit, I guess, in the long run.
I guess so, but it definitely paid for itself.
Yeah.
In the years I used it.
Yeah. And then at some point, while you were playing, you kind of had a blues slide guitar thing going, right?
Yeah, I sure did. That was very important to me. Our daughter was killed in an automobile accident when she was 10 in 1989. And man, that sent me into an unbelievable
I'm sure. I could think of nothing worse.
You can't. And I started taking up this. Well, actually, somebody gave me it wasn't a steel guitar, but it's made like a steel guitar, made out of Bakelite. It was an early national guitar.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I got interested in the slide, and I really worked hard on that because for the blues part, that was really, really satisfying for me musically, and the audience loved it too.
Did that help you somewhat heal? I mean, I don't know that you ever healed from something like that, but
yeah, I think it did. I actually was just messing around with it for probably months, and then I wrote this song called Sarah Jane's Tune, which is on one of my CDs, and I realized I had turned a corner, that it was a positive song, and I wasn't just totally under the
right
weather.
Yeah, well, and then how about the Doc Watson days? Let's talk about the Doc days. How did that actually even come about?
Well, let's see. I met Doc in 1972 at the I think it was the Livonia Festival. I think that's right. And he was just backstage. I didn't know him. I wasn't out performing musician. I was just at the festival to see it. And I was sitting backstage, and nobody else was back there. And I just started talking to him. And we hit it off. And then, let's see, I guess I had him on. I went to see him do the opening of the History Museum. That's what it was. He invited me up on stage, and I was playing at Appalachian State, and I invited him to play up on stage with me because he was in the audience with Rosalie. And let's see, I'm not sure how this fit together, but I asked him to do a record. He and Merle to do a record with me. It's called Reel and Rock.
Right.
And it's still one of my favorite records. And we really enjoyed that. really enjoyed the hookup that did. I'm thinking, let me think about that. I think he was on Fire on the Mountain before we did the record. Yeah, that's right, he was. And it was on Fire on the Mountain that when we played together on the show, we both, all three of us, Merle and me and Doc, realized there was really a rhythm that came out of that was ferocious.
Right.
And so I guess when I asked him to play on the record, he said yes. And the record was a hit in terms of folk records. And
oh yeah, did you win a Grammy for that?
Didn't win a Grammy. I didn't even know about the Grammys hardly at that point. That was 1980.
Oh, that was okay.
And Merle was killed shortly after we did that record. And then Sarah Jane died in the car accident. This is pretty heavy stuff, but in any case, it's the truth. And that was 1989. So that kind of thing where you lose a child really cements you to other people who have lost a child. It's just something nobody else can really understand. And so let me think what happened then. So he made Grandfather's Greatest Hits, which really was a hit, in 1989. And he asked me to start playing with him, and I played 14 years with him. I'm not sure the start date.
Was that?
But we started just going around. He just brought me in as part of the band. And it was me and T. Michael. And Doc.
Yeah. T. Michael lived underneath me one time when we were young.
Where was that?
At Appalachian State. Yeah, Boone.
Yeah.
So
he's a great guy.
Great guy.
And he T. Michael also worked as a cameraman and for CBS, I think. And so he couldn't do all the gigs, so I played all the gigs with Doc that I could. And that was about 2 or 3 a month, really, for all those years. It was great.
Yeah, I bet it was.
It was a high point for me because I admire him really more than any other musician, I'd say.
Yeah, well, we're talking North Carolina treasures. That was acoustic guitar, acoustic music, North Carolina style. Pretty much is that and nothing else. Yeah.
Yeah, he nailed it. And what I loved about Doc, and that I tried to do as well, but couldn't do as good as Doc, of course, but is take an old song and make it sound new, and take a new song and make it sound old.
Yeah, he's good at that.
He was great at that. You take something like Windy and Warm and things like that.
Right.
Ready for the Times to Get Better, those kinds of songs. And he would make them feel like you're hearing an old song, beautifully written. And, he just moved people. He was guileless. He was just a man who was in touch with his emotions more than any other performer I've ever seen. He could, every time he sang Shady Grove, every single time, he did it pretty much every show, I would look over and his lip would be quivering and he had a tear in his eye.
Wow.
Because he's thinking about Rosalie. Yeah. And this is how fast he could access his emotions and put them in a song. And he didn't open his mouth real wide and belt it out or anything, but what was coming out of his soul was so soulful that any audience could figure that out, that was the real thing they were hearing. And pretty much in every show, somebody would yell, "We love you, Doc."
I'm sure. Yeah.
Somebody, the energy just pent up in the room, and somebody yelled, "We love you, Doc." And it was an amazing thing to see. Because we did love you, Doc.
Yeah. I mean, that's yeah, and I know Jack, who played with him too. I know Jack played with him some too.
Well, Jack played with him before I started. He was playing with him all those years with Merle.
Yeah.
For a lot of them.
Yeah.
I think he played with him 17 years. I played with him 14.
That's a long time between the two of you. That's for sure. Did I mean, is that the highlight of your musical career?
I would say so, because if I had thought when I was first hearing that cowboy singer that I would get to be on the road with Doc Watson for 14 years, it'd be like, what? You're out of your mind. And then it happened, and that was just like uh, the highest thing that I wanted to reach for.
Yeah, I can see that, and this is kind of funny. You've probably thought about this, but I definitely have. There is when you both play harmonica. I don't. There's a lot of similarities in your harmonica playing and Doc's harmonica playing.
There is, yeah.
And I didn't know if that was something that ever dawned on you, but I mean, both of them are very unique harmonica styles. I'm a harmonica player also, and those are very unique styles that both you have and Doc, and they're kind of similar and not found a whole lot these days at all.
No, it's true. We're playing mostly straight harp and
Yeah.
bending notes at the high end to get the bluesy sound.
Right.
So it's got quite a different sound than a blues harp playing in the low end of the harmonica.
It does.
And getting those bluesy notes. Although both of us do that, there's something really great about the fast pace and the ripple of the notes of straight harp.
I agree. I mean, it is wonderful. I'm kind of a harmonica historian myself, so it is.
That's cool.
That's why I was able to. I don't know how many people pick up on that how similar you were in that you were playing, in the first position or open. It's pretty cool.
That's the way most of the harmonica players in the 20s,
True.
yeah, in the 20s and beyond, the blues harp really didn't come in that strong until, I'd say, the 20s.
20s, 30s.
But that was not the 12-bar blues particularly. It was,
No.
They played pieces like Ice Water Blues
Right.
and stuff like that. I love that stuff too.
Yeah, that stuff's good
But-
too.
The old cowboy singer I told you about, Carl Sprague, the first guy to record cowboy music, he actually showed me how to play that style. So I had a little bit of a running start when I got with Doc. But Doc, as he did with everything, was so, I'm going to use that word fierce again. It's like, there's heat behind it. There's power behind it.
Mhm.
And he had a lot of that inside of him. And it sure came out through the heart.
Yeah. I mean, I was always a big fan of his harmonica playing.
Yeah, me too.
Besides being a fan of his guitar playing and his singing, So
There's some great cuts online. I think there's one cut of Mama Don't Allow,
yeah,
and Rolling My Sweet Baby's Arms is another one that he just wails on the harmonica.
that's
It's
really
great.
cool.
Yeah.
That is really cool. Now, your state of music that you have going now, that's a pretty fine series. I like it.
Yeah, we just finished our, we have to raise the money for that, which is a lot of money.
Yeah,
And luckily, Will McIntyre is pretty darn good at it, the producer. And so this is our last season that we just finished with John Doyle. And hopefully they'll play, there's 36 shows total. And so people can watch them on PBS Passport.
yeah,
Called David Holt State of Music.
sure. I just saw the John Doyle one. It was really good.
Yeah, and that's the very last one of this 35 show series we've done. Southern Mountains, yeah.
Yeah, he does the storytelling thing too.
Oh yeah, he's great.
He's
I hope I had some influence in getting him into it.
I'm sure
But he's a
you
natural
did.
storyteller anyway.
He is. He's very good at it, and he and I used to be part of I think they called it an Americana thing at the Double Door in Charlotte for a number of years together.
Yeah, yeah, I remember him talking about that.
So
Is that still going?
no, it's gone. As with everything, time changes and it changes. Okay, so I just saw your latest state of music.
State of Music.
Yeah, and it was really good. It was the one with John Doyle, and is that going to continue on?
Well, it is, but not by me. It's gonna. Rhiannon Giddens has taken over the hosting of it.
Oh,
And it's going to be something, my music with Rhiannon Giddens, whereas my show is called David Holt's State of Music.
right.
So that's going to be great. She'll bring a lot of notoriety to it and, a different slant on it. But we have, with David Holt State of Music, if you look it up on PBS Passport, it's got 36 shows, I think. And they're everybody. I mean, you just really love every show, I think.
That's great.
And you really have some discoveries. Did you see the one with Ruthie Foster?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, what a singer. Man.
Really.
So just about every show is really, really good, and I'm very proud of that.
Actually, your all your guests on there have been just great, wonderful finds, and some of them, people knew about. I mean, Daryl Scott. How could you? You'd have to live in a vacuum if you like.
Right. We tried to have that balance of people who are known like Daryl or Rhiannon. She was in the very first one.
Right.
And people that you never would have heard of, like April Birch.
Sure.
Probably, but she's fabulous.
I know April. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
so we just wanted to open it up to people doing traditionally based music.
Sure.
And feature that.
It's good.
6 seasons.
Wow, 6. So there's 36 of them. People, if you want to go out there and see them, I will tell you that they're good. They're very good, and you'll learn about some really talented musicians that you didn't know about. We also share a common. I used to go to Tommy Gerald's, and I know that you've done Tommy.
Oh, Tommy was he was one of my heroes. What a guy!
Yeah,
and what a guy too. I mean, since you and I are about the same age, you're close. He just opened his house to young people.
He did,
and influenced hundreds of us, really.
Yeah. And people, basically people think of him as a fiddler, but he was a clawhammer banjo player.
Yeah, a good one. Yeah, he really could hook it. He had a rhythm like crazy.
Yep, and it's the same way with his fiddle patterns. That was the part I went to learn about was the bow arm. Because
bow arm was so unusual.
Yeah, it was very unusual, and he was good about that, and that's one of the beautiful things, and I think that you capture that for people who didn't get a chance to do those things.
I want to encourage people to look up. I don't know how it would be on YouTube, but it's probably David Holt and Tommy Gerald, John Brown's Dream.
Okay,
and it is really kicking. It was just one of those days, I have my old fretless banjo, and anyway, check that out, John Brown's Dream.
Y'all hear that? Y'all go find that. That's really good. I've actually seen it, so I know that it's good. So y'all need to go see that. I pretty much have dug everything that I could find over the years on Tommy.
That's great.
So it was, and I there's some very fine fiddlers out there working who have got Tommy's style down. And his open tunings down. Which is something that as a violinist, a fiddle player, I did not know until I went there. And it was kind of, you learn about a lot of stuff when you get to see it up close and personal.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's so of all the stuff you've done, do you have the most proudest thing?
Well, I loved winning the Grammys with Doc. That was pretty much, I got to play with Doc, and then to win a Grammy with him, it was like, okay, that tops it off for me.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But I think just being able to have a career is the whole thing, making a living and hopefully influencing people and helping the music step forward a little ways further into the future. And that's the thing I'm most proud of, I guess.
The thing about you that I admire the most is the fact that you can take a dream and turn it into reality.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you noticing that.
I mean, there's a lot of people who have ideas, good ideas, but to actually make them actually happen, That's a talent in itself. Besides being a talented storyteller, musician, yeah, you know.
A lot of that has to do with reading the audience and saying to yourself, what of the material that I know would fit right here and be the next song in the show or the next story in the show.
Right.
And delivering that, so they get to go on a little ride with you for the evening.
Yeah, and that's really cool. I mean, it's so whether you wanted to be a teacher or not, you became one.
Yeah, that's true. You're right. I didn't think about that, but you're right. Exactly.
You know, you told me that you know you went to do that and decided maybe not, but I think in the end you taught a lot of people a lot of stuff. You know.
Yeah, thank you.
It's one of those things that, you know, maybe you were right from the very beginning. It was just a different way of doing it because you've exposed everyone in North Carolina and worldwide to a whole different side of music that they would miss. And
yep, I think that's.
And I think you've helped keep it alive.
I hope so.
Because there is a lot of
great stuff.
A lot of old time music being played by young people these days. I mean, Asheville's full of it.
Oh man, it's great. And you know, I played with Josh Goforth for 20 years. 20 years actually. And that's, you know, been a wonderful thing for me because he's such a great, talented musician.
Mm. Yeah, and I kind of remember when you had him on your show like the first time, and
yeah, he was 19,
and he was one of those people that I didn't even know about. You know, it's like, and
he's a real talented mountain boy. You know, that understood the whole. He's very intelligent and a great musician, just a natural musician.
And obviously he spent his time. Of course, fiddlers are really bad to do that. Fiddlers do spend a lot of time with the older musicians.
Yeah,
and probably banjo players too. They both of those instruments lend themselves to spending time with the older guys.
Yeah,
and girls. You know, it's which is good. I think that's how you really learn. Well, one of the things too, while we're on fiddlers and your last show, you had Finn McGill on there, and you had him do Redheaded Boy two different ways, and you know that is.
I believe he did Leather Britches. I think.
Oh, it might have been Leather Britches, and did it two different styles, and I was thinking that. That's something that people would miss without a show like that, you know. That while they're the same, they're not the same. And
right. He's a fabulous player too, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. He is. You know, someone needs to. North Carolina has another dying music art form. I think they call it beach music, and I think it dies a quick death in the next little bit.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, I thought that's not being played on the coast.
Yeah, all the bands that play it have become pop bands, I think, and they're not teaching the dance to young people, which is a big part of that culture. So I've been watching that form of music die a slow death.
Wow. Well, you know, I always feel like you do what you can to help what you love.
Yeah.
But if it no longer makes sense to people or fits in their lives, it's just gonna. If you think about how much music has been lost in the history of the world, it's a lot.
Oh yeah. I mean, you know, and we take a. I think polka music will be something that goes away shortly with this generation. I don't know very many polka players, so.
You're probably right.
You know,
it's a great music, though.
It is. It is great,
and it's a fun dance.
It is, but you know, worked with a lady who did that, and I would go out and accompany her, but she's the only person I've seen doing that in a long time. So.
Oh, you played polka for her?
Yeah, I mean, I accompanied her. She would play her accordion, and I would either play bass or guitar, depending on how many other people she found to play with her, which was usually me and a guitar. But
right.
But it was
Never
fun.
thought about that disappearing, but I guess it might be. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think about music, different forms of music disappearing. It's sad to me.
Yeah.
And I don't really know, you know, and even if it's not a big interest of mine, it's just the thought of a style of music disappearing. It's kind of a sad thing. But you've done your part for definitely old time music.
Yeah, you can only do so much before you spread yourself too thin.
So, well, I know you've been a busy man all your life, David, and I appreciate you taking time out of it to spend some time with us and talk to me today. I do appreciate that.
Well, Sandy, thanks for having me, because it's important to get out there and for people to hear you, and I appreciate the work you're doing.
Well, thank you.
Man.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.